Hi, my name is Geir Eide. I'm the Product Marketing Manager for the Silicon Learning products in the Silicon Test Solutions Group at Mentor Graphics. And we're here at ISTFA, the International Symposium for Test and Failure Analysis, to talk about diagnosis in the era of FinFET transistors. And we are showcasing our Tessent Diagnosis and Tessent YieldInsight products. These products are part of the Tessent product family, which is a whole suite of software products for test structure insertion, test pattern generation, and post-silicon debug and diagnosis. Now, the problem we are addressing with these diagnosis products is yield ramp and also increasing mature yield. And the way we do this is that we allow our users to focus their PFA resources on the biggest yield hitters by generating defect Paretos before any PFA is done. And we provide the most precise defect locations, which allow our users to skip the most expensive and time-consuming steps in FA. The foundation for all of this is what we call diagnosis, layout-aware diagnosis. And diagnosis is a process that leverages design description, both logic and layout design description, production test patterns, and fail data from the tester to identify the most likely defect types and defect locations that cause the devices to fail during test. Traditionally, these results were provided at the logic level, so they were based on a logic representation of a design. And the results could be somewhat fuzzy in the sense that the nets that were called out could be relatively large. And Mentor pioneered what we call layout-aware diagnosis several years ago, where we leveraged the layout representation of the design so that the diagnosis results now are much more precise. They point to a physical location that's smaller and that also has additional details that the traditional diagnosis could not provide. Now, the next big step in diagnosis resolution improvement is something we call root cause deconvolution. It's a statistical enhancement technique where we leverage a set of diagnosis results to identify the underlying defect distribution and provide with results where we're able to pinpoint exactly the root cause of the defect, the exact via that is causing the failure. This also allows you to generate defect Paretos before any PFA is done, and that in turn allows you to focus on the biggest yield hitters. You know in advance which devices you should focus on and why. New this year is that we're talking about what we call cell-aware diagnosis. And Tessent Diagnosis has for many years been able to differentiate between defects in the interconnect and in the cell. And what's new is that we can now go even further. We can identify and find out where inside the cell the defects are located through what we call cell-aware diagnosis. How this works is that we leverage a library characterization process that we also use for test pattern generation. This is a process that we go through once per library, not even once per design, where we start out with a layout representation of each library cell, extract a SPICE level netlist, and then perform defect injection and fault simulation at SPICE level. And based on this process, we know what failures we would expect to see for each defect that could occur inside the cells. And we leverage this information now also for diagnosis, so that when Tessent Diagnosis has concluded that the defect is inside the cell, we can use this information, we can look at under what conditions that this failure occurs and use that to determine what the most likely defects are that could have caused these failures. Although this is very new technology, it's something that we have been working on with our partners for the last several years, and we have done a lot of correlation of diagnosis versus failure analysis results to be able to fine-tune this technology. And we're going to publish some of these results at the Asian Test Symposium next week. And at ATS we will show not just how precise and how accurate this technology is, but also how it helps improve the resolution of the diagnosis results by over 10x. So if you are here at ISTFA, please come by our booth and talk to us if you see this online. make sure to check out some of the webinars that we're doing together with ASM. And we also invite you to come to our website to see some of the collateral and the reference material we have available as well. Thank you very much.